Okay, let's go to example 1e. So example 1e, you have square root of 3, square root of 6, and square root of 2. So in this case, I'm going to break into square root of 3, square root of 2. Right? So over here, see the square root of 6, break into 3 and 2. So now when you collect them, you get 3. You collect them, you get 2. And so answer would be 6. Okay? So in the beginning, you can do this. But after you do it for a while, once you get really good, you can kind of skip some of the steps. But right now, when you're just learning the steps, try to do all the steps, learn the technique. Okay? Okay, let's continue on. Let's go to example 1f. So you got square root of 5, square root of z. And the 10, I'm going to separate into 2 and 5. And the 2z cubed, I'm going to separate into 2, the z squared, and the z. Right? Again, the reason I want to do z squared because it's a perfect square, right? The key is, again, to separate into matching number or the perfect squares. Okay? So that's going to start to collect our numbers. So this 2 will give me a 5, right? And this 2 over here will give me a 2. And so I'm done with the numbers, so I'm going to do the variable. So this one will give me a z. And notice how I write the 2 and a z, right? So you can see the difference between 2 and a z. So make sure you write a way so write in a way that you can tell, because sometimes you cannot read your own handwriting. Okay. Now collect these 2. So 2 radicands will give me a variable, right? And so you multiply out will be 10z squared. Okay, and that's it. Okay. Now let's go to example. Let's go to example 4. Example 4a. So you have square root of 3x, square root of 6x squared, right? So you can go and separate it out. So you got square root of 3, square root of x. The 6, I'm separating to square root of 2, square root of 3. And the x squared is already good, right? Okay, so I'm going to start to collect my numbers. So this one and this one will give me a 3. This one left over. So this one, again, do all the one that come out nicely. So this is perfect square, so that will give me an x. And these are the leftover, cannot be simplified, so you just leave in the square root. Okay, you can put them all together. So your answer would be 3x square root of 2x. And that's it. Okay. Now let's go to b. You have square root of 3w squared, square root of 2, square root of 8w cubed. Again, just go and separate into parts. So you got square root of 3, square root of w squared, square root of 2. The 8, I'm going to separate into square root of 2 and 4. And w cubed, I'm going to separate into w squared and a w, right? So you can break it down into parts. Then after that, I'm going to start to collect the numbers. So this will give me a 2. This one and this one will give me a 2. Again, circle them so you can keep track. Okay, so that's it for all the numbers. Now I'm going to do the variable. So you can do it separately or you can do it together. Okay, so if you do this one and this one, this will give you w squared, right? Right, two of the same radicand make into one variable, right? Or if you can do this, if you do this separately, that's fine too. You get the same thing because this will equal to w, this will equal to w, right? Either way. And the leftover would be square root of 3, square root of w, right? Those are the leftovers. Don't circle the leftovers. Just leave it like that so you don't get confused. So now let's go and write the final answer. So this would be 4w squared, square root of 3w. And that's the answer. Okay, so it's getting very simple. Okay, now let's go to example 5. Okay, so you got 5 square root of 2y to the 3. And you have the parentheses 3 square root of 6y to the 4. Now again, the parentheses means just multiply. So same as before, nothing different. You just have extra parentheses, that's all. So you do exactly the same. So you got 5, you got square root of 2, and you have the y square y, right? So this is this is that 2, right? And this one you get 3. And the square root of 6, notice there's square root of 2, right? So I'm going to break into square root of 2, square root of 3, And the y to the 4 is already perfect, so don't separate. Okay? So this is y to the 4. Again, if it's already perfect square, don't mess with it. So it's already good, so don't mess with it. Okay, so let's go and start to collect our numbers. So this one will give me a 5. This is a 3. And this one give me a 2. And this one will give me a y. This one will give me a y square. And that's it, right? So don't circle the leftover so you can keep track. So the leftover would be square root of 3 and square root of y. Okay, so now let's go and put all together. So 5 times 2 is 10, times 3 is 30, and this will give me y cubed, and this will be square root of 3y. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so let's go and do some practice.